county employees out here, and a couple of concerned citizens. Would you please rise and join Council Member Alan Blackman as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation.
I think I just did this last night. All right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you give us each and every day. Lord, be with this council. These council members have to make hard decisions when we get together like this. But Lord, we thank you for that opportunity and the opportunity to try to serve our citizens. Lord, be with the county employees too. Well, they're the ones that are actually doing the serving, and they are the face of the county. Lord, we ask that you forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Let's move on down to approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. McGriff, a second from Mr. Honeycutt. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Now we move down to citizens' comments. Please bear in mind this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak into the microphones, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. First, we have, let me make sure, Jean Wright? Jeline, come on up, Ms. Wright. I apologize for butchering that.
Where, right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Geraldine Wright. I'm on 4410 Logan Road. I've been there 51 years, and my concern is the gravel and everything that you put in on the road is constantly running down into my pasture, and every time they put it on there, which we need the gravels, but everything washes off from the fork of the road all the way down into my property. And there was a time I could just walk over. I have a creek behind my house. I used to just walk over, but now it's almost 4 or 5 feet. And all of that stuff forced from the rocks that on the road is washing it out. And that's my concern about putting something on the road that won't wash away so that stuff can stop coming on my property and on my property. Okay? That's my
All right, and I'll have Mr. Willis, would you address, point her in the right direction, Ms. Wright? Mr. Willis is our administrator. He'll tell you who you need to talk to.
We'll get in touch and have.
Split man Allen, the road, she lives on Allen's side.
Okay,
Can I say one more little
yes,
thing?
ma'am.
We want the road paved because now we have like 11 houses down there. And this is our concern because more people want to come and down there because of the road is not paved. We got a lot of traffic on that road now, more than ever. And it was put on the list and it was taken off.
All right, yeah, that's handled by the CTC, the County Transportation Committee, and,
We'll let her know when the next meeting is and make sure you have an invitation for that.
all right, thank you. Brian Scott Laney?
My name is Scott Laney. I live at 5105 Foxmead Court here in Lancaster. My concern is the same as Ms. Wright's were about the road being paved. My family been down there ever since I was a little boy. And I don't want to tell you how old I am, but anyway. But we were still concerned, and one of my reasons why I'm in now, because I don't want the road to be paved before I even try to put a home or anything there myself. So that's really one of our concerns, so I was here to just express that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our citizens' comments today. Let's move down to our discussion and action items. 6A, discussion of the fiscal year 2021-22 proposed budget. Mr. Willis and Ms. Belk.
Mr. Chair, before Steve start, should we have brought our notebooks or will we get a new handout or something? Okay.
Right. Today, we plan to do an update to what y'all have already seen at Committee of the Whole. And this will give you the information, so if you have any questions for first reading, we'll be able to, respond to them and have information that council may desire. The handout, I'll let Kim go over. Be honest, she knows it far better than I do. I would note that, of course, this is a reassessment year, and so we've had to take that into account. So that's why you will see on the millage rates, some of it is a decrease in millage because we have to as part of the reassessment process. At the Committee of the Whole, we presented a pretty austere budget. Since that time, we have some revenue numbers that have firmed up, and we have added 3 things to that particular budget for a base budget that's balanced with no millage increase. And that is a trial college program with economic development. That's one that we're going to run it as a trial this year, but I'm hopeful it works out very well, and that maybe next fiscal year, council may look at a college education reimbursement program for all county employees. It's something that we really need to do to help our employees become better employees. We have 2, help me out here, Kim, the recreation supervisors, crew leaders, maintenance crew supervisors in parks and recreation. That is certainly something that has been needed for quite some time. Finally, we have a part-time employee at the airport. Those 3 things are in the base budget with no millage increase whatsoever.
So Steve, what's in, but what's out?
Well, that's what we're fixing to cover. Kim will cover some of the changes that had been made since the April meeting, but if you flip over on the back, priorities. This is where we're getting into, for lack of a better term, it's a shopping list. These are some things that council has identified and staff has identified we really, really need to do. But it's going to require a millage increase. Now, I would stress, we can do everything in here, and we're not at our maximum millage increase. We're not proposing to go to the maximum. These are items that have been identified. Just picking, and then I would stress they're not in any particular order. These are just things that have been identified, but I'll pick on EMS because they're at the start. 3 paramedics. Well, that's the start of EMS 10. We can't do 6 paramedics and hire a full crew at 1 year. The numbers just don't crunch out. So what that would do is it would be the first half of EMS 10, and the idea would be next fiscal year you have another 3 paramedics, and EMS 10 would be operational. And some of that ties back into, it's certainly not a DHEC regulation. I don't want to make you think it is. But just kind of a general rule of thumb, you have 1 ambulance for every 10,000 residents. Well, we just hit 100,000. We've got EMS 1 through 9. EMS 10 is going to bring us up to where we will meet that. And then the year after that, 23, won't be my problem, won't be Councilman Honeycutt's problem, because we'll be sitting here at citizens' comments going, hey, it's time to start EMS 11. That's going to be coming. Fire rescue, the deputy fire marshal, the fire inspector, animal shelter. There's just a number of things on here, and we'll cover those probably one at a time. But I just want to let you know that, for lack of a better term, it's a shopping list. And here's what we can do. We can do it without going to the maximum millage increase.
Steve, let me ask you a question. Is this your shopping list and our shopping list combined? So whose shopping list is it?
It's items that we have identified and also we have heard from council.
So when you say you mean staff, you?
Yes, ma'am.
and Kim, okay. Now, is this list also in priority order?
No, ma'am, it is not.
Okay.
It is simply just a listing of items we have heard, and then, council can go through. There may be some in here that will find favor, there may be some that will not find favor.
You know,
That's going to be a council decision.
when we were looking at the budget, it was some positions in that budget that we did not want, and I think one in particular is the infrastructure person.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's that at?
That is still in the budget. At first reading, if council wants to take it out, council can vote to take it out. I can tell you from a staff perspective, we think it's critical.
But council's perspective is what's gonna vote
Correct.
on it.
Absolutely, and council can certainly make a motion to
Yeah,
remove it
yeah.
at first reading.
If I'm gonna vote for something like that, I want a detailed job description, qualifications, what codes are they going to enforce, everything, because I've really got a concern putting somebody out there with a playbook, that they're writing as they go.
Also, what I don't see on here is the clerk for the probation. What's this office over here? Probate judge, and I think several of us mentioned that. I don't see that on the list, so some of the things y'all missed
They,
from the conversation that council was
I
having.
mean, they got that at mid-year.
Yeah, we done that.
No, this was not the mid-year one. This was one that came up in the, that she requested in the new budget, and it was not approved. Because I think I said, and Brian said something about needing, additional help over in the probate. Now, I might be mistaken, but I'll look at my notes.
We done two mid-year, didn't we? That one and one other one.
No, just one in
Two
the,
at mid-year, didn't we? That one.
We added
One.
deputy coroner, we
That's
added
right.
position at probate. I'm not sure the exact, was it a clerk or a judge? We
Case-
added something. for
Case
probate.
manager was what
Case
was
manager.
added in the middle.
That's
One of the
one.
criteria I will
That was it.
be looking at when I look at this needs list or whatever, during the pandemic, a lot of people were furloughed. And, I mean, a lot of them worked from home, but there was a lot of hours where people were furloughed when they weren't working, correct?
That's
Or when everybody was, when they were home?
We had some part-time rec that were furloughed that.
But the ones that stayed home were working,
Yes, sir.
when you went to A and B shift,
Yes, sir.
they
Split
were
shift.
working from home?
But we furloughed some part-time.
No, but I mean, we had staff members, you had a A and a B shift. What was the A shift doing? Were they off? Like if in administration, if you had one person in here, was the other person actually working, or were they?
I think it varied department to department, but we
It varied,
have
but
those
in most
records.
cases, they were working.
It varied department to department. If they had the remote capabilities, like, everyone's job's different, but some of the employees that have to be face-to-face, and obviously when they were at home, if that's their main job, then I think they were placed on admin leave, but HR has those records.
I would kind of like to know that list,
Okay.
because I didn't hear any decline of service, or that if there's the position in here and, there was, that department had 500 hours that somebody wasn't working, the way I look at it might be different
Well-
than another department.
The one thing I can tell you is where it was trimmed back, if you talk to the department heads and to the citizens, yes, I mean, things got backed up and did not happen as fast, but the other thing, we were running the risk of having an entire department wiped out and shut down
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
I understand that.
one more question before they get into the discussion, so if it's not in the discussion, y'all can fit it in somewhere. What about the career ladder for the sheriff department and the grants that we could use that grant money to offset the career ladder?
The-
Will that be in the discussion today?
So, so my plan, and I guess what I felt from council at committee of the whole, I'm gonna put something in the budget ordinance that as those grants are approved, that money, or I should say if they're approved to be continued, that money would then go towards the career ladder. Until we know they're approved, we're not gonna designate them that way, but that's something I can write in the ordinance like I did with the bonus stuff last year.
All right.
That's the plan for that.
That council was, pretty clear, that's something y'all wanted to see, and we were prepared to do that, but as Kim indicated, until the grants are formally approved, I can't release the funding for that. But we do have the 3%.
Just make sure it's included somewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I believe if we don't continue the ladder for the sheriff's department, we're gonna continue to lose good people, and we've lost some really good people in the last year and a half. And I would hope that that ought to be a priority in my book. It is a priority to give these people
Right.
what we can give them to keep them in Lancaster's employ.
And that's why we have the 3%. And of course, the sheriff is a little different. What we do is he has the flexibility within his 3% to disseminate it as he sees fit. That's up to him as part of his career ladder. The grant funding would be in addition to the 3%.
What is the AP automation tool? That software?
That is accounts payable.
Oh, okay, automation tool. That software?
Yes. It'll help us streamline AP and do more electronic uploading and receipt keeping and all of that.
But I guess before I turn it over to Kim, for the final time, you have to listen to me sit up here and say this. Please keep in mind that, nobody loves millage increases. I don't particularly love them. I'm paying them just like y'all are. But under state law, you can only increase millage to offset inflation and population growth. That's it. Those are the two things you can do. And if you're not doing that, your service level is declining because you're keeping a static, steady service level across more people, and your expenses are increasing, like gas this week. Hopefully that's going to go back down. So if you're not advancing to maintain those service levels, that's something that, I look at is trying to make sure we're maintaining that. And Kim?
So for today, I had initially planned that first reading was going to be last night, and then today would just kind of give y'all extra time to discuss anything, that wasn't covered at first reading. But I wanted to spend a little more time with the revenue numbers. I got them Monday through Wednesday of last week, and I just wasn't comfortable pushing it through the agenda at that time. So I wanted this meeting to more be like an update on where we stand. So I have provided roughly what I'm, based on those initial estimates from the auditor's office and the assessor's office, I've put the rollback of what I'm estimating it at right now. I feel pretty comfortable with that. It may change a little bit, but after looking at the numbers, I think that that'll be one of the largest rollbacks we've had before, which just shows the amount of growth that we have had and the amount that we've put on in recent years in terms of the real. And then on the mill value, you can also see that growth reflected. I actually was a little nervous at how much that jumped, because that'll be the biggest, going from 364 up to 409, that'll be the biggest jump we've had. But we've had a lot of apartments that maybe didn't come online in 2020 in time that are reflected in that number. So you can see that growth there, which is going to impact what you can and cannot do as far as your priorities go. And then I just kind of wanted to give you guys a brief summary of what we've had to do. Some of that, I think most everything y'all should be aware of on that list, except for the items that Steve mentioned. And then, of course, we had the more solid numbers come back on property and liability, as well as the medical indigent fund that wasn't discussed. We did go through with the zoning and planning department merger, so that'll be reflected in your packets at first reading. The facility rentals for recreation I wanted to cover while I was here. We had talked about a joint use agreement with the school district at one point. And they've kind of come back and said that they want to start charging us fees for use of their facilities. We use the schools for volleyball and basketball. And so I had Hal and Catherine kind of work on roughly what that was going to cost us. And the estimate that they came up with was approximately $45,000. Now
Kim,
we're
is
going to,
this doesn't usually happen. I mean, is this the first?
this will be the beginning of this. So what we are going to do in turn is also request that they pay facility rental fees for us. So Hal and Catherine are still working on that. That'll be reflected in the fee schedule when y'all get that at first reading. But roughly what I'm estimating, based on some information I got from them, is about a $10,000 difference that we'll have to increase our budget by, because I'm thinking they'll be around $35,000 if they continue at the same level of usage that they have been with our facilities. So we did have to increase their contractual budget to reflect that. And I did want to let y'all know that, because I know, Chairman Harper, I know you have asked about that joint use agreement several times. So I kind of wanted to let y'all know where that stood.
Jim, could you tell us what we actually rent from them?
It's largely in the Indian land, like the school, the middle school, and I don't know if, can you speak to it, Catherine? And then North Elementary School, I know that, but
So Kim, you said we don't have a joint agreement, or we were working on a joint agreement?
we were, and this was their response to that. So we suggested the joint use agreement. Chairman Harper had brought that up before, and their response was a fee
When you
structure.
say they, did Steve and Jonathan have this conversation, or was it staff conversation?
Steve, I'll let you.
Jonathan and I had the conversation, but this is coming back from the school board.
Yeah.
Well, I think the school board needs to know this is a wash. You know, you get 35 from us, you get 35 from them. This is just the work that, I mean, conversation we just don't need to have. So I think, before we finalize this, I think our chair needs to talk to their chair and see what's going on, because we have always had an agreement with the school district, in the county.
They, several years ago, it was up to the individual principals, and they weren't letting them use some of the facilities. Wasn't that correct?
There were some principals that just would not.
So I do think we need something in writing, because administration's changed.
Do you think you could get with Bobby and have a
Yeah, but I mean,
conversation?
it's got to come,
We have received something.
yeah, he's not the chair,
Who's the chair now? Tyrone.
yeah.
Same thing.
What does the school district, what do they rent from us? What,
They use, so now, just to touch on the relationship portion, we don't really have an issue with any of the principals or athletic directors at the schools. We primarily use Indian Land Middle School for basketball, and North Elementary for basketball, just because we don't have the gym space. Because Indian Land Rec Center will be shut down, we're looking into using the schools up in Indian Land to do volleyball. We're already there doing basketball, so that shouldn't be much of an issue. What was your question? I'm
what
sorry.
are the schools renting from us?
So
What
they
what
use-
facilities are they using?
They use our swimming pool for their entire Lancaster swim team season, so that's 5 days a week, 2 hours a night, starting 1st of August until 1st of October, so 2 months.
Okay.
They have called us to host Special Olympics when Area 11 stopped doing it or it conflicted with spring break. We host that at no charge. A.R. Rucker, Indian Land Middle School both use those facilities for their field days or 8th grade or 5th grade picnics. We don't charge. They use our gym, they use our ball fields, they use whatever. Yeah, that's right. Middle school softball team, actually, we let them use the Indian Land Rec Center for their entire season, because they were assuming that their facilities would be ready for their middle school team. They weren't. Their season came around, they didn't have anywhere to play or practice. So they used our rec center field for their entire season at no charge. And we don't, from our standpoint, just to, be clear, I mean, we have good relationships with these principals and ADs, and we have a trade-off. They come and they help us do coaches clinics. Those high school coaches love to give back in our programs. We try to help feed and do things to feed the high schools. So the issue really hadn't ever been with any of that, just to be clear. Again, we like helping them because we're all serving the same people, so.
It's just that for so many years we worked as a partner. So all of a sudden we want agreements to pay 35, you pay 35, I pay 38. That's senseless.
Right, well, and where some of this kind of stemmed from is basketball, we were paying a very minimal fee. So basketball, all we were paying for, we weren't paying a rental fee, we were paying for the custodian to come in and open and lock up the facility. We didn't want keys. We're okay with that. There's alarms, so they would come in, they'd bring the carts and stuff for us in case we had issues during the day, then they'd come back at night. So we were paying maybe $60 a site per Saturday. So, I mean, it was very minimal of what we were paying. And then, we kind of billed them for the swim team last year and then COVID and, that's kind of, I think, what flared all this up is I went to bill them for the swim team because we're being billed for using the school gym.
Yeah.
And I staff, just to be clear too, I staff the pool with lifeguards for their program. So.
And you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Right, so they actually have, some of my guards swim on the high school team, and they wanted to use those guards to be able to lifeguard while they're at practice to claim that there's lifeguards there. Well, they're not guarding, they're swimming. So, they're there to be a student athlete, they're not there working.
Well, I guess what,
I would just like to see us work cooperatively with them. I'd like to see us not get into this cross-billing stuff.
exactly.
Just a typical waste of
Of
government
time.
time. That you give me 35, I give you 35. It's hard enough for you and the principal just to talk about who can use what, where, when, and why.
Well-
Now we're gonna have to document what was used, and now we're gonna have to bill, and Veronica's group's gonna have to do more work.
Well, honestly, it was easier dealing with the ADs and the principals because they know their school. Now, the new setup, everything will have to go through David Small, who's their facilities manager, for us to rent anything of the school district.
Yeah.
I'm with Charlene.
Yeah.
Our chairman or somebody, or Steve Willis needs to go and get this thing resolved, so we're not playing bureaucrats. We need
Yeah,
to play
yeah,
nice.
that's what it is. This COVID happened and stuff happened, but hopefully COVID will be gone and we can get back to normal, but we have always been a partner with the school district. I don't want to see a $50 bill or $100 invoice coming. We all using the same money, the same taxpayers, our children, so it should be a partnership.
It should be.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. I really don't think their administration knows what we've been doing with the principals and the schools as far as working with them. If they call us up wanting to use something, we cooperate. If we've got it available, we cooperate. Just an example would be Lancaster High School's softball field was a mess this year. I don't know if y'all heard about it, but it was a mess. The first about month of the season, they couldn't even use it. So we made Springdale available for them to come over and practice and do their.
They called me at noon wanting to
Yeah,
use
that's
it.
why we don't need anything about an invoice or a contract, because these things happen at the spur of the moment. You need to be flexible enough to work with the athletic directors and the principals so you can move on and not be tied up in paperwork. Just makes no sense.
Don't think that, Councilwoman, we agree.
We
but
agree.
It's not our call.
Yeah.
Well, I think our chairman needs to meet with their chairman, or our administrator need to meet with Jonathan, all y'all at the same time, and let them know what's going on. We don't want this. I mean, it's only $35,000, but it's a headache.
Well, and if there's any type of presentations or anything we can do on history and what the trade-offs are and the uses as I just described, we'll be happy to do that with them as well.
I mean, it sounds like to me, with what they use of our facilities and what we use of theirs, it ought to be an even wash instead of us coming out 10,000 on the low ends. I mean,
We used to use the football stadiums too.
okay.
But the fee on it was like $400 an hour. So we will no longer be using the football stadiums if we can't afford that rate.
That's crazy.
So we will find ways, we've already been in the planning stages of being able to have flag football and tackle football on our own facilities.
Okay, gotcha.
That is so crazy.
Hey,
$100 out.
Yes, sir.
one more on planning and zoning merger.
Yes, sir.
Are you bringing forth a rewrite of the codes? Because in our current code, planning and zoning are different.
Oh,
So a rewrite of that needs to come along with this.
Yes, we would have to do that. This is basically just a financial merger.
Okay, but
One of the things that y'all had asked, it really was just, John's had a lot going on lately. Basically bringing all those sections so the next administrator would have some flexibility to work with council on how they might want to see the organization set up.
all right.
In terms of other changes, just to highlight, we did increase for the $5 road fee proposal that was brought up at Committee of the Whole. $100,000 of that went to the signage line item, and $100,000 went to the contractual line item for the pavement preservation. Steve went into detail about that at the Committee of the Whole, but it wasn't actually in there yet. We did also have to increase for the disposal contract, and I did go through and I looked at all the utility line items, myself and staff, and we were able to reduce those, taking a little bit less conservative of a stance. So that saved about $61,000 across all the departments. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I know there were some concerns about that. In terms of that priority list, Councilwoman McGriff, I heard you about probate court. I think I had a note about it, but I don't know if I had exactly what position, but I'll go back and look at the requested positions. If there's a clerk, I'll have that information for y'all at first reading. And then I heard Mr. Harper also wants some information on the A shift, B shift. Folks that worked maybe got admin leave. And then related to the infrastructure inspector position, I do want to say so that Rox and Scott know that I said this. They have given that to me. I'll have that to y'all for first reading along with some other follow-up information that you asked for. I just didn't have the time to get it all together for today. So y'all will have that.
What I would like is for that infrastructure position to be placed on here, so we will determine whether it's in the budget or not. I don't want it personally all automatically in the budget. I think it should be on the list where we voted in or out.
Okay, and one thing I do want to highlight with that position too, we did increase the stormwater budget for half of it, but in terms of the general fund portion, because we did split that, we took part of a vacant position to fund half of it. So we did not actually increase the bottom line for that. I'm not arguing that we don't, if that's what council wants, that's fine. But I did want to let y'all know it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to save you money necessarily.
But we got next year coming, and the next, that position
yeah.
is a reoccurring position,
Yeah,
and it will continue.
I agree. I think that should come out of the stormwater fee. To me, that's the stormwater. That should be under the stormwater department.
Not if it's all over the county.
I think on
Well,
Dune
that's
County.
the issue. If it comes out of the stormwater fee, they're not coming out of that district.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're having any issues in the
Oh,
south.
yes, sir, we do.
We do? Compaction?
Well, that's why I think it needs to be put on this list for council to determine whether to put it in the budget, not put it in the budget. It needs to be on this very list here of these departments here. And I do want Kim to go down through each of these positions and explain to us the need, because some of them I never seen before. I mean, I'm sure they were in the budget request and y'all didn't recommend them or they were not approved. We talked about some of these and you put it on this list, but some of them we never talked about.
And again, we'll highlight those things, but keep in mind, at this point, it's still the administrator's recommended budget. But its first reading now becomes council's budget. Y'all can cut, add.
Well,
whatever.
from our conversation, Steve, you can make that first reading a little more,
Oh, yes, ma'am. That's
palatable.
what we'll have that,
Okay.
that pointed out. One thing I did want to mention for probate judge, I have not had a chance to read it, but I talked to Dee, first part of the week. She has sent me a proposal, and she is looking at increasing some of her revenue, with marriage ceremonies and things of that nature, and funding another person there. Once we have that, I hope we'll have, reviewed it, that would be revenue neutral because it's gonna cost some more, but she's generating more revenue doing that. Similar to what y'all did a couple of years ago with EMS and the billing clerk. Clay came to you and said, we'll have the insurance proceeds. Y'all funded the billing clerk for 1 year, it worked great, and we've had it ever since. So, but that's coming.
That will be great.
I literally just got it first part of the week.
Yeah, that will help her out in that position that she needs.
Absolutely will.
Ken,
I got
have
another
you,
comment.
have you got it down, nailed down the value of a meal yet? If we,
So the estimated mill value is provided on the first page, or the front page, sorry. I tried to
Okay.
get it all on one page, on the front
I see
page.
that now. Thank you.
Yeah,
I didn't
the 409,000, yep.
okay.
I got another question, Steve, on this infrastructure employee.
Sure.
To me, if he tries to do this whole county, you know what it's gonna come back. They're gonna come back and say this one person can't do the whole county. We're gonna be sitting here asking for a couple more people. I think we need to crawl before we walk. Let's put one person at the north end where we're really having issues. Let them work north of 5. If it works out, maybe later add the whole county in. But I think we need to crawl and walk before we walk on this thing, because this is a new phase of something that we need to gradually get into instead of jumping in here trying to do the whole county at one time. Because one person, I'm gonna tell you, is not gonna do this. What y'all saying is one person is gonna do for the whole county. It ain't gonna work. They gonna be too stretched out.
Yeah, we can certainly do that again. The idea, this person's almost like a crime watch person. They're
Right.
extra eyes and ears out there. And if they see
See,
something.
that's what I have. I have a problem with Big Brother. That's why a lot of people don't like government, is Big Brother. And that's a perfect example. If you give me the code books and the specifics of what they're gonna inspect and how it's gonna be documented and how 20 years down the road they can pull it up, I'm fine. Like my building permits, 20 years down the road, they can pull my plans, they can pull the inspections, like everything that's done in building and zoning, subdivision, all that's documented. But when you got somebody spot checking, on private land, that's one thing. We already doing we're inspecting the roads. I think Jeff and them aren't they doing rolls,
Well, we
checking
do
the roads?
proof rolls. We're not out
We're
there
proving
when
proof
they're
rolls.
actually doing the fill. That's where having the extra eyes and ears if something shows up.
I mean, that's what you put in the specifications where I have to have, when I have a footing done, I have to have an engineered, South Carolina engineer report turned into Evolve. I mean, that's the requirements that are met. And if roads need to have those requirements, if they need to be compacted every 50 feet with a test and turned into the county, that's fine. But putting an inspector out there and 5 years down the road, he's gone with no documentation, I just have an issue.
I'll be honest with you, I think our roads, we don't have any issues. I think Mr. Cato's done a great job with our road inspections and
In
the
general,
neighborhoods and
yes,
stuff.
but you recall up in Sun City with the infamous Pod U, things happen.
Things has changed since then, though, I
Scott
think.
says you get what you inspect, not what you expect, and Brock, I don't know, you may have some comments.
I know, but the growth is spilled south of 5. You got a huge development in Lennar. I mean, that's like a Sun City, and you can have the same issues in that development as we have in Sun City, and else we have somebody checking on it, and they,
I think that's what Billy
They are,
said.
they are
Do
inspecting
it in the
those.
north
I don't, well,
of their budget.
I don't know if anybody's looking at they might be doing that, but I don't believe they're looking at all the drains onto the roads, which is the main issue in Sun City, is the stormwater.
To be honest with you, I don't think they do that.
Fox, you wanna make a comment?
Sure,
Go
just
ahead.
a quick comment. I know we've talked about this a lot, and respect all viewpoints on the position. I would just add, to Mr. Mossero's concern on geography. In piggybacking what Mr. Graham said, we do, we have talked about the growth that is occurring south of 5. Look no further than Lennar's Roseland project. So we have, that is certainly a major project that's going to be building out over the next decade. You look directly across the street, there's a huge sign that's saying future residential opportunity. We've got 5 miles of sewer that were extended. So the demand for residential growth is going to occur south of 5. How far south and how quickly, certainly debatable, but that's the idea of why it would have the flexibility to be a county-wide position, but certainly I respect what your position that having a north of 5 priority. So just wanted to share that from a perspective standpoint. And again, in terms of scope of work of the position, for Mr. Chairman, your concerns, we did put together a very detailed job description which outlines what he or she would be doing. They also included a report and kind of showing what the kind of issues we're going to be trying to prevent through in a pictorial form, so it's very easy to understand.
Could you make that available to council, please?
Yes, it's going to be provided in the first reading.
First
packet.
reading.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so that if,
Y'all gotta remember, first reading and then second reading and then third is done. We don't have a whole lot of time. I'm not gonna speak to the rest of them, but I know for our regular meetings, the agenda packet printed was about that thick for this last night. And y'all are gonna throw all this stuff at us on one night, and I've got concerns. I've asked for, some sort of 30,000-foot view of what in the world we're doing with the road maintenance fee, and I haven't gotten it yet. I have no idea where that money's going, and my constituents have no idea where that money's going. It is the most vilified tax I think there is in South Carolina.
For one time, I'm agreeing with
totally
Alan.
discouraged at this point.
Can't believe it. And that's my concern, is that we don't talk it out here at the committee of a whole. We're gonna get to the first reading, and we'll talk it to death with all the other things that we've got on the agenda. If we're having concerns, it needs to be brought now, clean it up. First reading won't be so hard. Second reading will be smooth. Third reading, we'll just coast right through it. This is the time that we need to talk about concerns right here.
And we can get you that information, but I can tell you just in general, the road fee funds the road department. Now, there have been some special things added on lately. We had last time the $5 that went specifically for the pavement preservation program.
So what was preserved? I mean, there's no accountability, Steve.
Yes, sir. But it was reported back with the subdivisions that the roads were preserved.
Well, there's a list of roads, we don't know how many miles. It goes to the road department. What does that mean when it goes to the department? We're just paying salaries with it, or are we getting things scraped and done?
We did get a report from Jeff on that
Right.
pot of money. I do remember
We have
that.
a specialty, but in general, that's what historically, way before my time, that's paid for the road department.
Which
Road
is
fee.
employees.
That pays for the personnel, the stone, it doesn't cover it all. I mean, there's still general fund
Calcium
supplement.
chloride too, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, Jeff, would you come up and give us, because I don't think we're over budgeted on road maintenance, because how many miles of road did we take in, might have been before you came, how many miles of road did we take in 3 or 4 years ago?
You took in over 100 miles,
Yeah.
Leonard Lane miles.
And you did present us with a report on that
Absolutely.
funding. Yeah,
That presented
yeah.
you the candidates we had for the extra, everything for the pavement preservation. That was presented, number one, in a packet with the candidates we had, how we prioritized it, what we did, and this is only the second full year. First year, we had half the year, so we basically preserved Glen Laurel subdivision.
How many miles,
I'd like to see that report.
okay, how many miles of road do we have paved to dirt road?
Right now, like I said, and again, we need an updated inventory. But after all this, for, the past few years, you now have more paved, accepted county maintained miles than you do gravel. 14 years ago, it was way under. You had way more non-paved roads than you do gravel roads. In the past, at least 14 years, you have taken in over
We've
200
added-
centerline miles of county maintained road. Majority of them subdivisions north of 5.
And we had our total, can you have the total budget
Right at
information to us. Is that what you look, on the roads and
I would just like to
and the
see-
road fee?
What was done, just like we do in the budget, what was done last fiscal year? You know, what was the productivity, just linear miles, which roads? And then this year, year-to-date, what's being done to accommodate all that money?
We get that, don't we?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we get it.
And Jeff, you do the calcium chloride comes out there too, right?
Calcium chloride comes out of the transportation.
Transportation, okay,
And we do a report on that as well.
that's right.
But we can give you what we're budgeting to operate the roads department, what the revenue is from the base fee, not the specialties that council has designated for pavement preservation.
Okay.
Do you understand that, Billy? I'm not, you can tell me what's been budgeted, but I wanna know what got done.
I've seen the results. I have a lot of constituents
Yeah.
call me about the dirt roads being in good shape.
I've seen it.
I'm not saying they're not doing a good job.
Yeah, and I
But
think
I'm
that's
just
what
saying,
you
ask for
want.
additional money for the most vilified tax we have. I'd like to be able to justify what we did here, why we're asking for more here, and therefore there'd be some sort of logical comparison. Well, there was a 10% increase in our activities, 20% increase. Here are the roads, here's the linear miles.
Well, if we leave the base out, the only thing we've asked for in recent years, $5, and that went totally pavement preservation. And Jeff, you can pull that report back up and resend it. What we're asking for this year is another $5, and half of that would go to additional pavement preservation. The other half would go to signage. This council seemed to find favor when we had the developer money, and we did the signage up on 521, both at the ground level and also the overhead. And if we're gonna continue that, that's gonna be the funding source for it. But it would be countywide. The developer money had to be in Indian land, because that's where it came from.
I've got a lot of feedback from constituents about the signage. They like that, especially that big signage that you can see way before you get to that intersection. I've had a lot of people commented about that.
And the feds threw Jeff a little curveball this year. If you got a stop sign or other regulatory sign coming up on a 4-lane highway, it increased, what, size 20% or something? We've got to go back and replace a whole bunch of stop signs on divided highways.
Yeah,
And of course, they didn't send any money.
That's right, they didn't have.
Steve, where do we go with the priority list from here?
The priority list,
Yeah.
at this point, you know, I know we're kind of limited time. We got some other things on the budget. If there's something in here, you know, you say, I just don't like this at all, let us know, and we'll make sure it is a point of discussion at first reading. If there's something that you say, you know,
But see, that's
absolutely.
just it, Steve. You know, these positions are positions. We don't know the justification for it. We don't know the need for it. It's just positions. Some of them we know. Now, I know EMS, Sheriff Department, roads, other positions, I don't know. I mean, you tell us how important, because I can't tell you about a administration, public of information, we've talked about that. But we have not talked about, building maintenance. We have not talked about, positions in the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, fire rescue. We haven't talked about that.
I know we
Y'all
mentioned
might know,
fire,
but y'all need to tell us what you know.
the part-time positions, an auditor, treasurer, I know you hadn't been probably in a meeting, but I know y'all gotten the same emails from Carrie and Suzette I've gotten.
Steve, that's not what I'm saying. We get emails from everybody.
Right.
I'm saying to you, in those positions, compared to other positions, y'all got to tell us what's a priority and what's needed most. We don't need to pick and choose. Y'all
We'd
need
be
to
happy to bring them back. as
justify
priority.
to us what is needed. Do y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll have in priority order.
Well, I'm in
Along with
favor of
additional
the,
information.
I'm in favor of the 3 paramedics for EMS. The fire rescue, I don't know how one fire marshal can cover this whole county. fascinates me that they can, but I don't know how you do it, Darren, but you get it done. You need a deputy,
We got two.
fire inspector, you need more.
We currently have two.
We
One
got
does
two.
new inspection, but again, one can't cover the entire, it just can't be
No
done.
way, there's no way.
See,
You go
those are
down-
the things
Right
that
now,
we
we
need to
we need another body at that animal shelter. We got a beautiful facility, but we're having to work people on the weekend. With one person, we can put together a great schedule. The auditor needs another person in that office, really, really bad. So I'm just simply pointing out the things that I support on the priority list and others, but I'm just mentioning those few.
We'll have a little paragraph with each one, what it does, and all that.
And if everybody on this, in here in this department, look at this thing, and the most vulnerable thing on this thing is the airport, with nobody to be in charge if Paul's not there.
That's right, and
I
it's
mean,
not there.
that is serious.
It's not there.
We gotta have somebody that's trained that knows how to fuel those planes. We're gonna have an issue out there one of these days that we're gonna regret.
That's right, absolutely.
Do y'all wanna see that put on the list?
For me,
It's already on.
It's
on the
okay up
budget.
here.
It's on here part-time.
Right, what we'll do is we'll come up with a little, at least a paragraph for each
Second
one,
page,
It's
Steve.
explaining
part-time.
the need.
Right here, Steve.
and we're definitely.
Oh, okay, up there, I got you,
Definitely gotta
I
have
got
a
you, I got you, I got you.
Rec employee.
I didn't see that.
We can do that, have a paragraph be prepared. And Councilman, to your point, at least through the month of June, we'll try to keep the agenda as light as we can. Like I said, we had planned on having first reading earlier, but the revenue numbers simply didn't come in. We couldn't safely proceed, so.
Where are the revenue numbers? We haven't seen them yet?
They are in now. Kim got them the first of the week.
Can
I
we,
know,
Besides that, she was able to come up
but you know,
with a bill
we discussed the budget, but part of the budget is the revenue numbers. I mean,
So,
when we gonna get them? But, at the first reading?
It's, historically, we get the revenue numbers in, generally late April timeframe because Department of Revenue, some of their numbers is not coming in. And again, this year was a reassessment year. We had an extra wrinkle in the process.
I know, but I understand those numbers may not be there, but the building permit numbers, the tax value numbers, all those numbers are in. We could have looked at those numbers.
Well, they're projected. Keep in mind, this is a reassessment year, so new valuations go out 1st of July.
Building permits?
The building permits is a projection.
Yeah, I know, but we can still look at them. I haven't seen
They're in the
any.
monthly budget report.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's all we can do on them.
It's historical trend
Yeah.
analysis.
but I do understand what Terry is saying. We need those numbers as soon as possible and not given to us a few days before we've got to pass something. We need to be able to look at the numbers, ask questions, talk about it, because we're gonna get to the first reading, and we're gonna be all night talking about the budget.
And the only thing I can tell you on the revenue, and, I won't, it'll be the same thing next year. Department of Revenue data comes in when it comes in. The auditor's able to get their information when it comes in. That's not something we can control.
Oh, I understand that, I do understand that, but if you can get it to us as soon as possible.
It literally just came in.
so, I got updated assessment numbers last Wednesday, but I should be able to get y'all a, revenue summary by probably the end of the week. Maybe sooner, once I get some of this other stuff together, but, as of today, I pretty much got it to a point where I was comfortable bringing this stuff before y'all, so.
All right. I think you got a lot of work to do. Good luck. Any more comments where we are now? Information that you want to request?
So the next
Sooner
time,
we can get this information.
so the next time we'll talk about the budget as first reading, is that correct?
Well, we do understand that we are a growing county, Right now, if we got 100,000 people, in 5 years, we're gonna probably have 110,000 with all that we're approving in the Panhandle. Plus you got 5 or 6,000 coming right outside of Lancaster. So we're a growing county. And whatever our needs are, we're here to provide the needs for the people. If it's an increase in millage a little bit, then so be it. We've got to fill these positions. We've got to do what we need to do to keep this county rolling and being a top county in this state. And we can't do it by pinching pennies. If we're gonna be first class, let's go first class, in my opinion.
All right. Anything else?
I would like to offer a suggestion
All right, go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
for the auditor and the treasurer. Instead of getting 2 part-time people, I would suggest we hire a full-time person and let them work half a day in the treasurer's office and half a day in the auditor's office. That way they are cross-trained, so if somebody leaves either department, they've got somebody that could step in.
I will certainly explore that idea, but keep in mind they're elected officials, so I can't dictate.
Well, I've spoken to both of them about it, and they were open to it, so.
All right.
They may have changed their mind now, but. He threw you under the bus,
That's a, that's a, all right, any more budget discussion? Mr. Burhands, Development Services update.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Members of council, I'll be efficient with my time, knowing you got some things after this as well. So just want to get in front of you to share some updates on various items. We've been wanting to get in front of the council to discuss these things, but just obviously agendas have gotten busy, so we are happy to be before you now. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is a new inspection process that we implemented earlier this year for residential building setbacks. County adopted zoning roughly around 1991, which included building setbacks. To our knowledge, the county's never had a setback verification process. Was the house built in the right location? We thought that was a little odd given how many homes that we're building. Also saw some issues pop up in the field where homes were or other structures were not complying with setbacks. So we went ahead and put together a setback inspection program working with our building community. The good news is that there's a lot of checks and balances that the residential builders, at least the tract builders, put together to protect themselves as well. So we're doing some information sharing with their footing as-builts as well, and so we're also retaining a copy of that in our eVolve system, so that's always there as a resource. For those builders that are not doing footing as-built, we just have them mark the property lines before we go out there and do a physical inspection. And certainly if it's a big lot and there's tons of extra acreage, we can use the building inspector's judgment in whether or not it was built in the right location in compliance with setbacks. And so, so far it's been very successful. We did get, it was probably a bad week and a half or so, but after we got past the initial humps, it actually worked out really well, and certainly compliments to our building inspectors for making this come together, because they did have to accept an additional task that's outside the building code. But I really do appreciate their flexibility and work on that. So I'll move on. As soon as I can transition this slide. Sherry? Okay. So I also want to check in on a topic. I think we've talked a little bit through the administrator's report on, but I just wanted to share this with you to make sure everyone has access to information. When we started getting kind of re-energized with development services, we noticed that there was a lack of data on our development permitting and entitlement. So we have gone out and audited the projects that we've permitted, and audited the projects that are being built and under construction. And I just want to remind everyone that we do have these spreadsheets that are on the Planning Department website. So if you ever want to know what the build-out status is of a subdivision or of an apartment complex or townhome community, you can always get it here, and also know its ultimate build-out in terms of its size. So I just want to remind everyone that this is a resource that is updated roughly every month. And Sherry, if you'll go ahead and we have the same resource for our apartments, and here it tells us that we've got roughly 1,400 units entitled for apartments that are not yet constructed. And that doesn't include our even larger projects, our PDs that may have other apartments. So just again, want to remind everyone that this resource is available to you and your constituents. Other resources we have, and I think we've talked a little bit about this, is with our eVol software, we can run reports really easily on building permits. This is an example of like a summary report that we put out on a monthly basis. You know, how many inspections are we doing? How many permits, individual permits are we issuing, and what type of permits are they? I just want to make sure you're aware that this information is out there. And if you want to go beyond the summary level, Sherry, if you'll do one more click. We also will detail in the reports the individual permit and who pulled it and what's it for. And we've actually found that a lot of our, particularly on the residential side, the building suppliers are liking this information out there, so they know who's building and they can kind of just have an opportunity to introduce themselves and the materials and resources that they provide. So again, just want to let you know we have a lot of great data on our website and encourage you to use it, and I can certainly send out direct links in a follow-up email. The next thing I want to kind of share with you is something we started out early on, and we kind of pulled back on it when we went to when COVID hit and had to do split shift type scheduling. But it's a program that a lot of communities have, and we call it Open for Business. And it's nothing that we necessarily invented, but it's something a concept we want to take in and kind of make our own in Lancaster County. And that is, that's an opportunity to kind of help small businesses more easily navigate the zoning and building permitting process. And we had a lot of the tools already there in our toolbox here, but what we're trying to do is polish those up, make them more accessible to the public, and also offer some kind of concierge type service to our small business community, folks that maybe haven't opened a business before and they really don't know about permitting processes and changes of uses and what that means. And so it's going to help them better understand what is going to be expected of them, what kind of investment they may need to make in existing businesses, and they may end up resulting in them not wanting to open a business because they realize, oh, I'm going to have to put a sprinkler system in with this change, and that's way outside my budget, but they get that information much sooner in the process. And so we think this is going to be a tremendous resource, and share more. This is going to be just a tremendous resource, and also towards helping getting some of our older buildings reoccupied for any small businesses that have left due to COVID or e-retail kind of squeezing them out. So again, this is something probably in early June we're going to be hitting the ground running with, and we're excited to offer it to our community, and we'll be meeting with the chamber as well so they can introduce it to their constituents. Another thing I'm going to ask actually our planner to come up, and Ashley Davis, and talk to you about a new resource we have for the public in terms of how we share information with the community on public hearings. So this kind of new map that we have is kind of in response to 3 problems we were having in the planning department. One was we just weren't doing a good job educating the public on what's going on in the community and how to get that information to them. Oftentimes it required you to call the department and, hey, I saw a yellow sign, what's going on, right? So, and nowadays people are on their phones and on the laptops, and not everybody, but a lot of them, and they just want the information themselves, and they want as much of it as they can. Combined with that, we had our zoning map that we provide on the website, that the GIS, was actually being maintained by the COG staff, and that was going the way we've seen it go with other projects. And so we are also the planning director also had a frustrating customer inquiry that kind of led to this map coming together. I took a customer call, tried to help a gentleman get some rezoning information on an active case. I couldn't do it using the resources we had, and it was such a frustrating call. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, okay, we got to fix this problem immediately. And all those problems came together to create this map, or I should say to get Ashley to create this map. And so what I'd like to Ashley do is go ahead and do a demo if we could. And we've already shared this with Indian Land Action Council as well as, I believe, the chamber as well.
So, little background. We've got public comment on this side. That was a recommendation from the Indian Land Action Council, actually, when we shared it with them, was hey, if you're gonna have these cases online so we can see them online, we wanna be able to comment on them too. So there's a link to where you can comment or send comments. This map has all of our zoning overlays, including the thread trail and things like that. All of our zoning overlays and things like that. So we've got the highway corridor overlay you can see here. We've got the heel splitter overlay. The floodplain is shown on here, which is something we didn't have on our previous maps. You had to go to the FEMA website and navigate all of that. So this puts it all on one map. And you can actually turn layers on and off, so if there's too much information and you don't know what you're looking at and you know you only want to see current cases, you can turn all the other layers off and only look at current cases. So current cases are going to show up in that bright yellow color that you'll see in a couple of places. It's the same color as our public hearing maps, which was just kind of a color we thought people might recognize. So the case number will be on here, as well as the parcel number, current zoning district. You'll also be able to access the application, plans, all of that, and we put it on there as soon as we can following the actual application. So it may be on here a month prior to it going to Planning Commission. So this gets the information out a lot sooner. It gets more information out to the general public. You can actually search this by address, by parcel number, or by case number. So if you are out, you see a sign, you can search that case number that's on the sign and pull it up. Or if you know generally, hey, this is near Black Horse Run, you could search Black Horse Run and pull up any case near there. Any questions, comments?
I'll say, the spreadsheet information, for example, just absolutely outstanding. You know, that's just a great snapshot that we can see what's going on in the county. And then I'm not sure, one of y'all gave me a map like this that has all the neighborhoods in it and all. And because I live on the southern side of the county, I've actually driven to Indian Land and started at the top and went down and tried to see as many as I could see. I mean, I didn't get through much of anything coming south, but it familiarized me more with the area. So hopefully I'll make better decisions. But data, now this is data. This is what I was talking about earlier today. If we could have this kind of data at our fingertips, I wouldn't have a problem talking to somebody about roads and scrapings and things of that nature. This is excellent information. Ashley, you did a great job with it.
And I'm actually working on that neighborhoods map that you have a copy of. We're working on trying to make that a more accessible map and kind of merge that with some of those spreadsheets so you can put it all together. But that's a project we're working with GIS on, so.
Great work. Yeah, I think what's more amazing is that she survived all of the little nitpicky comments we gave her on it. And no, change this, no, make this color, and et cetera. So I know it's great. So we were able to replace our online parcel map that COG was maintaining for a fee. We now do it in-house. And again, now we've given the public a tool to learn more about rezoning cases and variance cases and things like that. So it's been a great win. Everyone we've shared with it have just done backflips over it. They're just
So you
excited.
get to this rock through the county website?
We can. What I'll do is I'm going to send the council an email with a link to this, as well as the link to the spreadsheets that we reviewed. If you'll just tuck it away.
Okay, so if I have a constituent and I want to say, then they're asking me about a zone, I can say, go to the county website and click on such and such a tab. Is that the way it's going? Is it there now?
Yeah, it's there now on the planning department webpage, and so you can tell them there's a map that they can go to. I think it's what's called the planning map, and they can go to that and they can pull up the case, look at the applications, look at if there's a plan associated, look at the plan. They can even provide a comment if they want to say, hey, this plan looks great. They can do that and do it directly from the website using that map.
Okay, that's really good because, you know, I'm sure Mr. Carnes and I get calls about what's going on here, and we may not know. I mean, we just can't keep track of everything, but now we have a source that we can give them a link to go and look it up, and so we don't have to go look it up and then get back to them, which is pretty efficient. That's a much better answer than saying, I don't know.
again, and we're also, as you use it or share it, we're open to feedback. So if there's a way we can make it better, simpler, whatever, we're open to it. So this is just something we think is very important, want to share it with you. I'll follow up with an email with a link to this map.
This says the official zoning map, is that what I'm
That's
looking at?
correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, great. Another final item I wanted to kind of just walk council through is with Evolve. This is something that, I think compliments go to all of the departments in development services. I think when we implemented Evolve, we talked about how we're going to be faster, more efficient, save the development community money so they're not printing these expensive plan sets and driving down to Lancaster or hiring couriers and such. And we've done all of those. But I think the one thing that we didn't do is, or hadn't gotten to yet, was kind of translating that into reduced plan review times. And so, several months ago, we got the entire division together and outlined every function, every permit type we do, and how long does it take us to review the first submittal, and then how long does it take us to review the follow-up submittals, which usually is a less amount of time. And then we went, okay, can we do any better than that? And then we went through a very painstaking and oftentimes almost like a working negotiation with ourselves to see how we could shave time off the review schedule. So we still did quality work, but again, we were using the right schedule, the right amount of days needed, and not sitting on projects or permits. And so the spreadsheet on the right, the two columns on the right-hand side in red are the new review times. And oftentimes we just shaved off even just a couple days. Other times we cut some reviews significantly in half, oftentimes. And so I just wanted to share this with you to let you know that we're kind of honoring the investment that the council made in Evolve by giving the public or the development community a more efficient review schedule as a result of that. So you're actually they're actually getting a direct return on this investment.
There was one that came to me several weeks ago, and I think, I don't know the whole story, but I think there was confusion at the beginning of the process of the plan submittals, that they might have not submitted all the plans, I don't understand all that stuff, the civil plans, and they thought they had submitted them. Do we have the checks in balances? I know when on building permit, there's certain things I've got to turn in.
Yes.
But on these bigger commercial projects, there's a checklist on there that somebody's checking it in and making sure that the civil plans and everything's in to begin with, because I think that was part of the problem, that they thought they had everything and they didn't.
Yeah, I think so. Development is always an evolving process, right? So we're always trying to learn and do better as we move forward. And so, one of the things some recent changes that we've made is undertaking kind of a behind-the-scenes completeness review when projects come in. And so the development services coordinator is, let's say you're going to build a new Walgreens drugstore. Well, there's certain plan sheets that you just need to have in there to be a complete submittal. And so instead of taking that plan set in, routing it to the reviewers, and then the engineer, architect, whomever finding out a month later that they didn't have the landscape sheet or the lighting plan or the architectural sheet, the elevation sheet, we're going to do a quickie completeness review right then and there within the first day or so, and then get back, hey, thank you for the submittal, but we didn't see your lighting plan here, and that's a required element of your project submittal. Can you get that to me now so I can go ahead and get it to the reviewers? Or if not, maybe we need to call a timeout. And so that's one of the changes that we've made to help increase the efficiency and quality of our reviews. And so, again, it's definitely an art, not a science. It's an evolving art, I guess. And so that's one of the ways that we have evolved. So, again, this is something, this is all compliments to the staff on this, because they're the ones that have to honor this spreadsheet. So I just wanted to share it with you that we're returning that investment that you made into Evolve. So.
And everybody I talked to, Evolve software, that's great. That was one of the better investments we made. Helps everybody out.
Last thing I want to update you on is some upcoming projects. So I just want to let you know that we have gotten under contract on the UDO rewrite. Again, we decided to break it up into two phases. with the first phase being the assessment. So this will be where the consultant takes a very thorough examination of the UDO and using their expert judgment and experience give us some communication back on what they feel the issues are and what the scope of the update rewrite initiative should be. It's going to be a 90-day project in total, and then we do have funds reserved in the budget for next year that if they come back to us with a major rewrite or update needed, that we've got the funds there so we can turn around and just get started on that very quickly. But we think breaking this up will give the consultant a much more detailed review opportunity to look at the code to see what the problems are, and therefore give us a much more detailed and better cost estimate on how to fix it, because they've spent the time assessing it. And so we think that's going to offer a better return on our money. So I just want to update you that 90 days, so you'll see that, and it will conclude with a presentation to council.
All right.
The last is that we've issued the RFP on the comprehensive plan rewrite. Proposals on that are due May 20th. As far as we can tell with early indicators, we think we're going to have several good proposals submitted. Also, several months ago, council initiated a kind of a small area plan update. That, if you recall, the Highway 521 corridor between Walnut Creek roughly and Van Wyck Road, he asked us to look into it. We're wrapping up some property owner and stakeholder interviews. We're expecting to do a community meeting in June and be before the Planning Commission in early July. This has been probably a 90% staff initiative. We do have a small consultant helping us just with more document production. So I just wanted to update you on that and certainly just make you aware. So that's all I have for the Development Services update. A lot of little items, but they're important, so we want to make you aware of them.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
No, but I like what I heard.
Yeah, thank you. That would, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks to
Very
staff.
good. All right, let's move on down to 6C, discussion of fire apparatus acquisition. Mr. Willis, Mr. Player.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, I'm going to cover just a little bit about some financing options, and then I'll turn it over to the Fire Commission, because they're the body that recommends. They have an apparatus study committee that will cover that. Basically, we're to the point, we have two pieces of apparatus that have timed out, the stick at Elgin, platform at Lancaster. We also have need to put platforms at Indian Land and Pleasant Valley. Also, there's a RV-style mobile command post. And again, I'll let the Fire Commission, they're the experts, cover that. I want to talk to you briefly about some financing options. When I talked to you originally about this was looking at a general obligation, voter referendum, so the general obligation bond would not count against our 8% bonded indebtedness cap. These trucks are amazingly expensive. You saw some of the handouts, platforms, get one equipped. You're looking about $2 million each. That's not what we normally spend on fire trucks. These are special apparatus. So didn't want to have something that was going to tie up your flexibility and future council's flexibility for years on end. When Kim's going to be presenting the capital improvement plan to you, if we just did this under just regular bond cap, we're going to eat up a huge chunk. So originally looking at voter referendum, that's the standard way. Voters approve it, doesn't count against your 8% bonded indebtedness cap. Talking with Franny on that, she said there is another option that is now available to us, and I wanted to bring this to you. It's one of those situations, I hate to put council in a position of going to the voters when we don't really have an option to say no. The apparatus is simply needed. And I don't, do you recall years ago in Charlotte, city of Charlotte went to the voters and said, we need to build a new Coliseum downtown. And it's been amazingly successful, generated a lot of good things. But the voters said no. And then council went ahead and did it anyway because they needed to do it. In the next election, some of those council members weren't council members anymore. I don't want to put y'all in that kind of position. So I wanted to bring you the option that Franny had mentioned that has the benefit of not counting against our bonded indebtedness, but also it allows council the flexibility. It's an installment purchase plan, similar to what we've used for the courthouse across the street. And basically, we would buy the apparatus over time in installments, like a lease-to-own type scenario, but it doesn't count against your bond cap. It is a little bit more expensive, as outlined in the information from Brian Nurick, but the other thing is you're saving about $60,000 for doing a countywide referendum. In November, we're not planning, we don't have a general countywide race coming up. We have some city races coming up. Have a resolution that John's working on, and Van Wyck Fire Department is looking at doing a advisory referendum for the Van Wyck Fire Fee District, similar to what Pleasant Valley and Indian Land have. But again, for that one, Van Wyck's having an election anyway. The only thing we'd be looking at would be opening up the Gold Hill precinct. But John's working on that, so that'll be coming. But we don't have countywide races coming up in November. So it's not something we can just throw on the ballot and say, hey, we'd like to look at this. So wanted to bring to you the option. After talking to Franny, I think it's a better option than the voter referendum is the installment purchase. If council's interested in that, I certainly can have Franny bring more information to you on that. At this point, it's just simply a concept. In talking with Franny, she felt it might be something we might want to look at, and I agree. It may be something we want to look at.
Steve, have we used that special obligation bond before?
We did it for the courthouse. We used the installment purchase option for the courthouse, but now that was funded through capital project sales tax. This would be funded. This would be debt service millage. It's going to be debt service millage either way, no matter what you do. The only thing is, it's an option that you don't have to have the full voter referendum. And
Even with that, you gotta pay for the elections.
How many fire trucks does the city of Lancaster have? 6, 7, or 8?
the fire department,
City of Lancaster Fire Department. How many,
He said fire apparatus, I'm not.
oh,
how
fire
many,
apparatus.
they're on our cycle of one every, like
Yes, sir.
the volunteers.
The
so-
City of Lancaster Fire Department is treated the same as all other fire departments.
All right,
Y'all
so
appoint their
we-
member to
we-
the fire commission.
Every 7 years, every 21 years, they get a fire truck, right?
Got a rescue last year, last cycle, I believe. Yes, sir.
Okay, I requested, and Ms. Simpson didn't get a response from nobody on what is the county's written, policy toward purchasing fire trucks for the city of Lancaster.
All right. Be happy to answer that for you. There is no written policy. They are a member of the fire commission, same as everybody else. We don't have a written policy for,
Why are we buying them a ladder truck?
because it's one that's needed. The county contributed to the current ladder truck they have now.
What are they going to contribute to this truck?
For this truck we're proposing to buy it would be a county piece of apparatus.
I talked to the mayor and he didn't know anything. He had, same thing, there was no policy. So, I mean, I've got an issue with that.
So it's something we've been doing without a written.
We
It's
buy
been
them
historical.
one truck.
Yes, ma'am.
We buy them one truck like every other fire department. We don't buy every truck they got. That's a $2 million truck, a $2 million ladder truck.
And
And,
same as we would, we don't
there's-
have a policy for Indian Land and
I
Pleasant
guess the
Valley, which
question
we're
is,
proposing,
are
or
we
Elgin.
obligated to do this?
Mr. Chairman, I got the email and I was unaware that you wanted those answers in writing. I'm prepared
Well-
to try to answer your questions.
All right, but as Mr. Blackman said, it'd be nice if we have information in advance, because we're trying to digest everything in a 30-minute time span, and my brain don't work like that sometimes. It spits out the wrong information initially. Go ahead.
One thing, I see that truck at the Lancaster Department, and it looks like it's in pristine shape, but y'all are saying it's timing out. And I'm just curious, on all of these ladder trucks and the ones being proposed, well, we've got the ones being proposed, but what have the other ladder trucks done? Like, how many calls have they made for fire emergency purposes? And then, even if they haven't done a lot, what do you, and this will be more Darren maybe, Steve, than you, but, it's almost like we're gonna put $4 million worth of ladder trucks in Indian Land. What kind of fire or what kind of situation would demand that kind of two vehicles, in other words? You see what I'm saying? What's been done in the past? How many calls have they been called out for? And then going forward, what do we anticipate? Because, I mean, if we really need two up there, I want two up there. I wonder, even in my area, we probably don't have a whole lot of need for it, and I'm okay with that. But by George, if this side of the county needs it,
we're putting two. I live in Elgin, but over the years, that fire truck has went out very few times on the actual call.
But that's the base
And,
information
you
to start this
put $4 million
conversation.
worth of ladder trucks 4 or 5 miles apart down here where you don't have the tall buildings.
Right.
I
And
can
I'll let
understand
Darren-
with the 3- and 4-story apartments.
Right, I'll
in
let
Indian
Darren
Land.
cover, but, when you look at Kier, Red Ventures, the Marriott up there, you got the fire load that's gonna demand it. Historically, and having been a former City of Lancaster volunteer, I don't know how to put this politely, but, when we had the fire downtown Kershaw, they wanted the City of Lancaster fire truck because they knew that, number one, they're getting a platform. Number two, they were getting people that, knew how to use it and all that. Admittedly, the Elgin truck does not run like the Lancaster truck does. And there have been cases
Why
where the
don't we
Lancaster
buy
truck
one for
passed Elgin to go to
Elgin? Why
Kershaw.
don't- If that's the case, what are our obligations to buy a fire truck for the city? Why can't we buy it for the county?
The only problem I got
don't
with
understand
your ladder truck's probably usually your third truck out, I would imagine. On most fires, would get called out. And I don't know if you got the firemen to operate, how many firemen do you have to operate that truck?
Well, the city, Pleasant Valley, and Indian Lane you do, but Darren, that's
Yeah,
getting
that's
into
different.
operations.
Let me go back and answer your first question that you had sent, Sherry. And as Mr. Willis said, there is no written policy, but then in 1996, the county obligated itself to do $150,000 against the purchase price of the ladder that sits at the city right now. That truck cost a little over $500,000. It was about $550,000, $560,000. We did that at that time so that we could be certain that if the county had a need of a ladder truck anywhere in the county, they would be obligated to send it. And that was all understood at the time. That was about the same time that the city of Lancaster joined the Fire Commission. That was a city council decision and a county council decision. I do not have that document. It was before I became a career employee, and I don't know where that document's at. There are documents out there because I was chair on the Fire Commission, and we did letters. I actually attended a city council meeting, and then I attended the county council meeting that the votes were taken to do that. The city moved in. They did not get the same privileges when they first came on the Fire Commission. We didn't treat them just like we did every other department. We didn't pay all their utilities. We did not guarantee them that every time we bought trucks, they'd get a truck. Over the interim between about 1992, 93, when they first came on the commission, and today, we have now gotten larger departments in the county with the Indian Land Department, which is fully staffed, and adding even more staff in their new budget that they're asking you to approve in the coming budget year. Pleasant Valley has 24-hour staff, and they're filling out those shifts with part-time firefighters who work in other areas, Rock Hill, Fort Mill, City of Charlotte, Monroe. They got firefighters there. Some are members, some are not, but they're all part-time Lancaster County employees that work there. A number of years ago, the Fire Commission decided that it was no longer fair to treat the town of East Springs, the city of Lancaster, and the town of Kershaw differently than we were treating all the other fire departments in the county. So at that point in time, Fire Commission picked up the utilities for all the departments. They get the same access to the insurance reimbursements, even though those towns insure that, they get the money that they then use for those fire departments. So everything that the other county departments used to get, the city and town departments now get. The 2016 purchase was the first time that we outright purchased a truck for the city of Lancaster as part of the 7-year purchase. And back to your question, every 7 years, we try to do a purchase. We don't guarantee anybody that all of the departments are going to get something every year. At this point, since 1996 and 97, every time we purchase trucks, every department in the county has benefited from that purchase in one way, shape, or form. Mr. Marcelo was on the commission back when some of that was going on.
So Darren, it is not agreement in writing anywhere
No, ma'am.
that this is gonna happen?
No, ma'am. Every department is treated the same in that the fire commission makes the decisions on what equipment will be purchased, meaning the apparatus, and where it will be placed. The apparatus and equipment committee has been meeting already now for almost 2 years, working on specifications for the next purchase. This latter purchase is in the middle of that, because if we try to purchase this much, you saw the numbers, it's roughly $9 million. If we tried to purchase that at the same time we do the 7-year purchase, we'd buy nothing but ladders.
So let me ask you this. You do have a discussion with county council about that. Is there any discussion with the mayor and city council about the process?
I know we cycled, and that every 7 years, there's a cycle, and they get a truck. They just got a truck 4 years ago.
Well, in 2016, they were part of the purchase. Those trucks came in 2017. They put an extra $75,000 or $80,000 in that truck. There were a number of departments that put more money into the truck to advance it the way they wanted it for their particular department. We allow them to do that. When I say we, I'm talking about the fire commission. There was a base truck that was bid.
I just have an issue of us committing to buy a $2 million fire truck to go in the city of Lancaster without their participation or even being discussed with the city. I don't think that's the
Yes,
county. My personal opinion, it's not our responsibility. We just give them, last year, the county just approved 3 firefighters that the county pays that are located within the city of Lancaster.
And all of that is to ensure that we've got response in the entire pan of the county for rescue. They basically are covering. They run out, our people run out, the volunteers that respond are going out, but it guarantees us that we've got some people coming out when we have to do extrication, that kind of thing. So they're sending out their units for that. Until we get full county coverage with career people that we can depend on a response, we're going to be having to obligate ourselves where we can get those responses. We've got it pretty well covered in the Panhandle. But when you come south of number 5, we're completely dependent upon volunteer response day and night and weekends.
Does that include the city?
We respond into the city when they have a call with the guys that are on shift.
Does the city come outside of the city?
The city does come out when we call them. We don't have them on automatic aid on anything except the extrication calls. If there's a call that comes out for a motor vehicle crash with extrication, they are automatically dispatched anywhere south of 5, east, and west, and all the way down to the Kershaw County line on 97.
So once, and I know in the future, once we're able to have paid firefighters throughout the county, that will not include the city, right? Because they're on their own.
It would not have to. That will be up to whichever councils are in place at the time. But back to Mr. Harper's point, the Fire Commission plans of apparatus purchases. When that plan comes to you all as council, to be honest with you, we thought the councils would deal with the city and make sure that the city was doing what was going on. The last purchase we did, we deal with the fire department.
Well,
I
think administration needs to deal with administration. I don't know how council feels. This is just a workshop. And that might be, need to be, brought up for discussion, because there's gonna be different points of view.
It's holes in it and it's things that need to be done. We assume that these are already being done when they're not. The mayor should be aware of, if he's getting a fire truck, I think the mayor should know that. If the city's getting a fire truck.
We could certainly do that, but again, to Darren's point, in the past, we've dealt with fire departments.
I don't care.
Bringing it up.
Mayor of the
The
city.
fire departments, they don't approve the money. I mean, this is, it all comes back to, it falls on our shoulders. I'm gonna have trouble, explaining to my constituents why I've gotta spend $4 million on a ladder truck in Elgin and one 4 miles up the road in the city. I can I can see the ones in Indian Land. I can see putting
I
a
can
second one up there immediately. I can see that. I look at those 3-story new apartments and townhomes, and they scare the heck out of me, which I know they've also got Fort Mill and Pineville that'll respond, but that's 10 to 15 minutes away or whatever. And, you know, and I can see one immediately
Yeah, I can
going
see
up there now.
everything in Indian Land, we need it, because we see it.
And that, it's obvious.
And again, keep in mind, you know, fire commission may have a different opinion than me. This is just administrator.
Right.
If you had to give up one of the two, give up Elgin.
Give up
I
Elgin
mean,
before the
I might
city.
get, they might run me out, but I agree. I mean, I don't see, I couldn't justify, I don't think you could justify putting a $2 million, the Elgin, you know, I live down there, but they're like the rest of the fire departments, they're struggling with enough personnel to run 3 or 4 trucks.
I'll let Darren cover this. You know, when they had the big fire downtown Kershaw, they didn't call Elgin. They
The
called-
city of Lancaster fire truck went right by. I know it did. I remember that.
The thing is, if you ask me today, is a ladder truck justified in Elgin? My answer is no. And that's not a secret. I told everybody that asked that
I agree
question.
with you, and I might get.
But here's my thought pattern, and here's what the fire commission has thought about. Number one, Elgin had a truck already. Everybody thought they paid half of it. They didn't quite pay half of it. The county paid the majority, the county paid a little more than half, but Elgin put a pile of money in that truck. That truck is timed out. There's a number of considerations, back to Mr. Blackman's point a minute ago. ISO, Insurance Service Organization, figures into how ladder trucks have to be placed. That has to do with density, and it has to do with building size. That's why everything's justified in the Panhandle. That's why it's justified in the city of Lancaster. Today, there are no buildings in Elgin tall enough, other than, there's some houses that meet that, but they don't count residential. They're looking at commercial. And other than church steeples, there's really nothing tall enough there to justify it. There's nothing tall enough in Kershaw or Heath Springs right now to justify them, not to mention they don't have room in their stations. Elgin does have room in the station to have a ladder that can help serve that end of the county. That's one of the considerations. The other is that the ladder platform can be used differently than what I call the stick. We're looking at trying to buy, if you all fund, and we put the ladder at Elgin, it's 107 feet. That's a really good elevated waterway that goes up high. It's not necessarily safe for people to be on the end of it, although it is constructed to where a firefighter can be on the end of it. It'll be somebody else, it won't be me up that high. But anyway, when we do that, we have that truck's capability as well. The growth that is now right poised at the north of the city of Lancaster, the growth that is already anticipated within the city limits, I think they're in the process of annexing some land now, that growth will probably go around the east side and may even go around the west side, but I anticipate because of what's already there in water resources, sewer resources, and other things, that growth will come around the east side. And Elgin is a community that people want to live in. So that within the next 10 years, there may be a need that justifies a ladder truck. It'll cost a whole lot more in 10 years than it costs today, but if we bought it today in the process, it will still be a truck that is serviceable for that 10 plus another 10. The NFPA, which in South Carolina is a consensus document, it does not require us to do anything. It recommends. All fire trucks are built by the manufacturers to be compliant with NFPA 1901, unless you sign some kind of waiver, and I don't think we've done that in the ones that we bought recently. But NFPA 1901 is the standard by which they bill, because they're selling all over the United States. So what they're doing has to be compliant with that. There's some other NFPA standards that are coming out. 1910 is one of those. It recommends that at 15 years of age, a piece of apparatus be moved, if you've kept it up good, and thankfully in this county, I think we do about as good a job as anywhere in the world of keeping our stuff up. That's why we got such good money out of the ones we sold just recently. But when we keep them up, and we've got the records on them, and we bought them new, and thank you for y'all and the people before you, and hopefully the people who come after you, we've not had to buy used apparatus and rebuilt apparatus. Y'all have furnished us new stuff, and for that we're eternally grateful. But that gives us the ability to know that truck was bought new, how we've maintained it. So at 15 years, we don't need to get rid of it. We can move it to reserve status. All of these ladders that we're talking about are more than 15 years old. So we'd move a couple of them to reserve status. Some of them need to go out of the system. The KME at the city, it needs to go. They'll sell it. That's not our truck. We only had 150,000 in it. The ladder at Pleasant Valley has a little bit of age on it. Sun City bought most of it. The county put money in it. They need to move that to their Harrisburg Road Station. Number one, it gets them above traffic on that side. But number two, there's areas up there that it needs to be able to get to. And because of the ISO that I talked about a minute ago, it helps cover that. You get into the, instead of the 5 road miles we always hear about, you get into the 1.5 miles that we talk about with ISO that has to do with density. So back to Elgin. Today it's not justified. 5 years from now it might be, but we'll be trying to buy, in another 2 years, we'll be trying to buy the 7-year purchase. So these things are going to roll into one another. This time we need to buy the trucks that are the specialty trucks, and that's what the ladder trucks are. So, you know, that's a brief discussion of why those trucks are there, why the Fire Commission has made the recommendation that it makes. I mean, we understand you all have the money. All we can do is recommend. You place that trust in us, and we appreciate that. They've been working for over a year or two almost on the specs, the ladder specs and everything else. So I don't exactly know why the mayor wasn't aware, but the Fire Commission doesn't deal with the other political bodies. They report back to you all.
I still have an issue with the city not being included or asked to be a participant in financial participation in such a major purchase. I understand that we, you know, buy Kershaw, but, you know, the city of Lancaster has all this equipment, and we've bought a percentage of it, and we'll continue to buy a percentage. I just have a problem with a $2 million purchase. We're just saying here, without asking, you know, are you 50% in? Are you 75%? Are you not in? So you know, that's my issue.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is, you know, from looking at it, from making sure it's available, if we need it, it's gotta come. It's our truck.
But it belongs to them, so.
I mean, it is
Well,
titled,
state
it
of
would be
county.
titled to Lancaster County.
It would be owned by the county. But it's in the city, it may own it, but why don't they take and be a part of the purchase? I guess I'm not understanding that either. We buy a truck and we place it in the city, even though it's ours, we place it there. The mayor don't know, and I'm sure the city council don't know, that it's even there, that we paid for it and it's there.
Right. I'll touch base with Flip, had no idea the mayor was not aware. I mean, that's an issue.
I don't have a problem with the regular 7-year cycle or whatever. I think that's a great plan. As Mr. Blackman said, I would like to see the numbers on how many times those trucks, that in Elgin, have actually had a working fire. Now, in Indian Land, I don't need to see those numbers, because that's just a matter of time with all that new stuff. The past, the history.
I would still like to see Indian Land also, if that's not asking.
Indian Land does not have a ladder.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but
Pleasant Valley.
Pleasant Valley does.
Pleasant Valley
There,
does.
if that's not too much trouble, you know what I'm asking
No,
for.
we can query the firehouse report. Pleasant Valley, Chief Nicholson is here with Pleasant Valley. He can tell you they run their ladder on virtually.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that the residents of the city are also residents of the county, and they do,
Yeah, I know, but then.
they do deserve to get the same investment in fire service that the rest of the county does.
Don't you think they need to also know that they're
Oh, absolutely. I think if we were to buy a ladder for the city, there would have to be a mutual agreement put in place that says, this truck belongs to the county, the city's gonna staff it, and wherever it's needed out in the county, it will come.
But it's no different than the rescue.
I could have the opposite argument that, you know, the city residents pay more taxes for their fire. They pay more taxes for their city police department.
Yeah, they're paying for enhanced services,
Yeah,
but
and
they need
this
the
is-
same basic level
Yeah.
that the other county citizens
I
get.
agree, but I don't, I disagree with them not participating in this
We're in the
purchase.
7-year cycle with the city.
I agree with
This is
that.
an addition to, is what he's saying. Do they need an additional truck? I don't know. I mean,
They're gonna have to replace the 96 ladder. The other part of the ISO, not ISO, but the NFPA recommendation is that at 25 years, a truck goes away. At 15 years, you can move it to reserve status. Well, they don't need a reserve ladder in the city. They need a ladder they can depend on. That one has already been refurbished, and it is again dollaring them to death. They're paying the maintenance on it. We're not doing that. We ladder test it, but we're not paying the maintenance on that truck. They've been doing that all along themselves. We only had that one investment of $150,000.
How many years old is that? How old
It's
is
a
it?
1996 year model.
And when you say it goes into reserve, what does that mean?
It would become a second out truck instead of the first out truck.
If there was no first out truck and it's in reserve.
It's not reserve if there's no first out truck.
Okay.
If their truck's in the shop, they would jump on that truck and use it.
Gotcha.
And that's no different than, I mean, I work for the city of Charlotte, and we ride reserve trucks all the time. They're not good for first out runs, but they're good enough until we can get another truck on.
And NFPA recommends that you begin trying to phase them out at 20 years, but that at 25 years, they need to be gone. You don't even need them in your fleet. Now, that's a consensus standard. It's a recommendation. We understand that. You can't meet NFPA in everything, and we fully understand that. But where we can, we think it's a good idea to do that, because if something happens, we're in a better stance legally if we've met that standard, as opposed to if we're having to defend why we didn't meet that standard. As long as we can afford to. Now, there are departments out there that run 50-year-old trucks, and you can go find them. They're not too far from here. But thankfully, we're not in that shape, and I hope we don't ever get in that shape. And that's some of what we're trying to prevent with the cycles that we're buying. This is an out-of-cycle purchase, and it costs so much that it needs to be an out-of-cycle purchase. It doesn't need to roll into the 7 years. And, you know, I understand y'all are not happy about the fact that the mayor and city council didn't know. We don't include that in our discussion. We expect the individual fire departments, and we treat the city of Lancaster Fire Department just like we do Pleasant Valley, just like we do Indian Land, just like we do Antioch. We talk at the fire commission level. We expect them to notify the people within their organizations that need to know what's going on, and then they send back the word of what they want done. When we purchased the rescue for the city, somebody at the city decided they wanted to put another $75,000 in it to add some things to it. That came out of the city budget, so at that point they had the discussion. They may be waiting, or the city fire department may have been waiting to see just what council's gonna be willing to do, and then they were gonna go and fill their elected leaders in on what was going on, rather than
what will
time
happen
meetings.
if we only do one truck for Indian Land? Where will we be at countywide?
I mean, you can do it one a year or whatever, but I guess, this will come before council, and then at that point, council can make a recommendation on 4 trucks, 3 trucks, 2 trucks, 1 truck, no truck, how they gonna pay for it, whether they're gonna ask the, city to participate in it or not. I mean, all those will, when it becomes an action item.
Mr. Chair, I've got one more comment.
Go ahead.
With the city, having a truck in the city is a positive thing, because they do come out into the county. When I was chief, we'd have a large structural fire come in, a church or something, a call. I would say get the city en route with the, and they would tell me they already en route. So, I mean, you know, they listening
yeah,
and they rolling their truck, and we depended on that. And we got to have some kind of big ladder truck in Lancaster, in this area down here. You can't just put them in Indian Land. I mean, I know they got them, we gotta have them up there, but you gotta have some, at least one here somewhere, because this building here catches on fire, you need one, or the hospital over there, you gotta have one. And we got some large structures in the
So we
county.
don't have a ladder truck now?
No,
County
other than that,
does-
it's outdated at Elgin.
I
Other
just
than
have a
the city's
truck
outdated.
problem with the city not participating.
The only thing I can tell you there is that the city does participate, as Darren mentioned, in maintenance and staffing and sending when it's needed for the vast majority of the county. Those are city firefighters we're not paying for. They're
We pay for 3 of them.
That's one per
That's
shift.
three with the rescue.
That's one per shift,
Yeah.
so there's only one working per day
Well, we
that
paying
that
for
we're
3.
paying for.
And-
But you're getting, when you get that ladder truck, you're getting 3 to 4 firefighters with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they send the truck and the people to operate it. We don't have to tie up county resources, meaning personnel, to do that. Our personnel are fighting the fire. The other question, Mr. Harper, that you asked that I have not answered at all has to do with the command post, the mobile command post. That's not just for the fire service. That mobile command post is for every one of the emergency service agencies. For fire, sheriff, EMS, anybody that needs a command post on their scene. Most of the time, if it's that big, we're all there, so we're all using it at the same time. You'll remember several years ago, there was one on an auction site, and
Yeah, we bought it.
you all authorized me and Clay to bid on it. We didn't win. We lost that bid. It went for a good bit more than we were authorized to go.
Okay.
Mr. Willis, on his own volition, authorized us to go a little bit higher, but even then, it just went on out of sight. I do have purchased, and we only paid the mileage, through a federal program, the mobile operations center that sits at my building. That's that big white trailer that you all see when you pass there on White Street. What we're doing with it is making a backup EOC and a backup 911 center. And I'm basically funding all the technology off EMPG grants, Emergency Management Planning grants, along with a partnership with 911, which Stephen Blackwelder and I started, and Rob Purser and I are continuing it as we're going through. So what can come off the tariff, they're funding some of that as well, but we're doing the majority of it with emergency management grants, so that we can have those things. I'm supposed to have a backup EOC, and every year in the risk assessment for the past 25 years, we've not been able to do that. We're finally trying to do that, given the size of this county. We don't have a backup 911 center. Everybody thought it was going to be in York, but it's not. And York may be changing their CAD, so they won't even mesh with the new world that we have. What we'd rather do is go ahead and fund something, put it here in this county. If 911 needs it, they'll use it. If I need a backup EOC, they would use it. If there's a conflict, 911 gets the priority. I agreed with that when we began to put some tariff money into that. So we don't have a command post.
Okay.
That we need to purchase, and this is the time to do that in this purchase as well. But it does all the emergency services, but because these others were fire trucks, the commission decided they would make that request to you all on behalf of everybody else.
All right.
Who's the chair of the apparatus committee?
Greg is. That's why he's
Is
here.
he here to give us some information?
He can tell you about their
Yeah,
process if you want to ask
yeah,
questions about that.
Me and Billy
You
both
got about
working
3
on it.
hours, he can tell you something.
Billy is my staff representative on the apparatus and equipment committee, because his job is maintaining the apparatus among a whole 1,000 of other things y'all are aware of. So he assists Greg as he's doing the chair's job with the members of the commission. Of course, they're rotating in and out as their terms expire and new people are coming on. So, but.
Mr. Chairman, can we get like a overview of what we're talking about on the ladders and stuff? I know we got some nice pictures in here, but,
Right. 2 different type models. The one for Elgin is a 107-foot straight stick single, what do we call a single axle. More easier to get it into some smaller areas. And for that area, it would be sufficient for many years to come, just because of the size of it. And what they have now is a 75-foot, I believe.
I think it is. Is that right, Billy?
75 foot, so we did make it larger just to give them a little bit more reach, anticipating more growth in that area.
It's a 2001, the one at the city is a 1996, so you know both of them are 20 years or older.
The one that we have currently at Pleasant Valley is a 107. It's a tandem axle, and all that is it just carries more water and stuff like that on the load side of it. There again, in our, what I call our upper district, north end of our district, we getting a lot of residential growth up there, so that one needs to move up to that area. And then the other 3 trucks, one for Pleasant Valley, Indian and the city of Lancaster, is a 100-foot mid-mount, and all that is where if you look at the aerial, the turntable part that rotates is in the middle of the truck, and it's right behind the cab. It gives you more accessibility to some of our locations in a tighter span, and it does have a bucket on the end. Ours and the Elgin ladder is what they call a straight stick, so there's no bucket. You have to climb to the end to if you're gonna make a rescue out of a window or something like that. With all the assisted living facilities we got up there, I think I counted them up the other day. Between us and Inland, we'll have eight units or 8 different assisted livings, anywhere from 3 to 4 story. So the aerial buckets, or the platforms as we call them, would definitely assist us in that if we have to retreat people out of a window or something, versus them having to climb down a ladder. We can assist with the bucket operations. So that would give us the platforms in the Indian area, and also one in the city, replacing the city one. I mean, I'll be glad to answer, whatever questions. We can get into certain things if you want.
So these trucks would handle a 4-story building?
Oh, absolutely. They'll handle up to about they say a 10-story, but with setback and all that, you could get it about an 8 or a 9-story building. And there again, I'll commend Chairman Blackman for riding up to our area. It's definitely, we're getting a lot of multifamily dwellings and a lot of assisted livings, and obviously that comes with growth, but it also comes with especially my district with the hotel, multifamily dwelling. We're getting a lot of multifamily dwellings, 4-story multifamily dwellings. And most of them have about 50, right at 45 to 52 units in each building. That's a lot of people in one area for a building. And so when you ask about response, our ladder responds to every fire alarm, commercial, multifamily, and then obviously we got some developments, got some large houses in them. It responds to that also.
Is up in the Panhandle, is there room for another truck? Are there bays available? I mean,
There is space available at Indian Land, and there will be.
Yeah. We still have to, we're hoping to start a Station 2 next year. So that's where that truck would go.
It'll take a little over a year, or right at a year, to get a truck from the time we order it. We still have to go through the bid process, the specifications, the bid process, and I didn't want to bring you any numbers that had any kind of deal worked into it to where you feel pressured to make a decision. So when we were getting you these planning numbers, I told the vendors that I dealt with, give me a good solid 22, 23 figure, meaning spring of 22 is probably when we'll be ordering, if we order at all. And don't put any pressure on me saying I got to do it by the end of January or the second week of January. I want a number that the council can take its time to make its decision and do what you want to do.
Okay.
Just also be mindful of these pricing has equipment for these trucks also. So that's a large purchase there with just the equipment to outfit a truck like that is expensive.
I would say our apartment is right at the intersection of 521 and 160, and there's days that about every 30 minutes I hear the fire trucks coming out. I mean, they're making that many calls.
Average, I mean, there's some days we might run 1 or 2, and there's some days we might run 6 or 7 calls a day. Typically, we've been running around 11 to 1,200 calls a year in our district, and that continues to grow. Now, obviously, COVID, we dropped off some medical calls, but we don't, our call volume, it goes up every year.
Well, I just, want to say too, thank you to all the firefighters and the responders, emergency people. Those guys, the people I've met are just so willing to jump in wherever they're needed to assist. And I certainly hope we continue to, we're going to support y'all, of course, and continue to support that attitude where I know it's hard to get volunteers, but even the paid guys, they like to jump in there and they like to go to the scene and help out. So I commend them and thank them, and thank you guys too.
And these guys are about the only people that's running into the building when you're running out.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That's
I
right.
appreciate it. That's all we got for you. I've got personally, I got a couple of questions on the financing for Mr. Willis and Ms. Belk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One thing that Mr. Blackman has always mentioned, that we need to possibly pay for some of this stuff as we go. I'm pulling out the March monthly monitoring report, and I've always harped on that we do have an impact fee with building permits. Through March, total budgeted collections on our fees in permits and licensing was $5,036,977. That's 133% of target. Current year-to-date collections were $6.7 million, with 3 more months of collection to go. So even if the next 3 months are half of what the past 9 months were, there's over $2 million right there. And to me, this is the kind of equipment that building permits ought to be paying for. And will that money be available, and why not? Or why not?
I'll let Kim talk about, some of that money is budgeted for, general revenue.
$5 million.
Some of it is extra, admittedly, but, as of last night, we planned on committing $1.5 million to the airport.
We planned on committing design. We didn't complain. This is money that we've already got. This is year-to-date collection. I'm not talking about 2 years down the road. I'm talking about what has been collected in the last 9 months and what's going to be collected in the next 3 months. We're already year-to-date collection $6.7 million. The budget was $5 million. That's $1.6 million over budget already.
I would say that every time we mention the word fund balance, it comes out of that pot of money.
Yeah, well, the fund balance, if you look at the fund balance, there's
Well, there's a certain amount of fund balance we have to keep, to keep the auditors off our back.
I'm looking at that.
Have we budgeted at that percentage, Kim? We budgeted at 100%, or did we budget at 130%?
So, okay. So to speak to the fund balance piece, just so y'all are aware, I do have it planned in the CIP that we're gonna start utilizing that, and the goal with that was we were gonna start reserving this excess at the end of each year. So as the CIP is now, I have it planned that roughly $4 million of fund balance for just CIP. Now, we use fund balance for a lot of other stuff than just the stuff in the CIP. So we'll use it on vehicle studies, whatever other one-time things we have in a year. But for just the CIP, roughly $4 million a year is planned out at least in the next 5 years, with this growth of the building permits factored into where I came up with that projection, that we could sustain that moving forward.
With our fund balance remaining where it needs to be.
Correct, as long as we continue on this path of growth. So I did factor that in. Now, could y'all choose to fund a fire truck out of that instead of doing something else? Or if there's more than that available, then yes. I mean, that's something that we could look at. But I am trying to start planning for that to be reserved for future usage.
All right, that's all I got to say.
Well, all I can say is I'm going to support impact fees, but I'm going to support them with the contingencies that we reduce some of these building permit fees.
I mean, that's the problem. If you were to take the building permit fees and help the area that's impacted by the growth and not use it as a subsidized for the rest of the county, that, I'm fine with that, but the impact fees force the county to spend that money in the area that is impacted, whereas this county has been using that surplus to survive. I mean, Indian land has been the economic driver for this county, and I don't think there's anybody would argue with that.
Kim,
Well,
how much,
I would
Kim,
say to that though, Terry.
if that
I
happens,
could argue the other way that we,
if that happens, Kim, how much?
Pay the bill. Y'all are not paying the bill.
No,
to
no,
your-
that's right, you're not. Kim, if that happens, how much would that affect the budget? I mean, they don't understand that you're basing it on the impact fees you're based on impact fees and the other fees.
So I'm gonna be honest with the group, and Steve knows I've said this many
I
times.
hope you're always honest.
Yeah, but I just mean on this, I am, but on this, so I would rather not do impact fees and keep building permit fees where they are, because there's no strings attached to those. We can do
That's what I was-
wherever we
That's my
need to
point.
do things.
You talked about fire trucks. If we have the impact fees, it's going to fire stations. You can't legally buy a fire truck with that impact fee because there are strings attached. Building permit fees are general fund revenue. They are at the sole discretion of the 7 of you how it's going to get spent. And I'd certainly echo, if one of the others got to go, trim the impact fee.
Exactly right. I agree.
any,
Well, if we trim the impact fee, are we gonna also commit spending that money in Indian land to handle the impacts that we're being impacted by?
Well, Brian,
As long as 4 of y'all say so.
We didn't spend all this money on ladder truck possibly for Indian land. He Springs and Kershaw's not getting a thing out of it. We do spend money in Indian land,
But
that's
Kim,
what the
how
general
much would
budget's
that
for.
affect the budget if because you have
I would-
laid out the CIP with the impact fees and the other fees. You planned all that in that,
Not in the budget, but in the CIP. So,
CIPs.
I mean, if we decided to reduce one or the other, then we'd have to look at the timelines of those items, potentially cutting items or trimming back on what we were gonna do with certain things, which again, prerogative of council. I'm, not saying that I'm for that or against that, but, that is
one
something
will
that.
affect the other.
It
so-
will. I mean, we just won't be able to do that whole list in the time that I have allocated.
Well, I don't disagree with Mr. Blackman on saying that we should look at the building permits fees. I've said that quite often. So, but I don't think we need to abandon the impact fees because they're going to be going to the area, and the people that are paying for it are not residents right now. They will be residents after they pay for them, but they're not coming out of constituents' pockets all over the county.
My point is, the impact fees come with significant strings attached, and you don't have freedom and flexibility to spend it the way you want to. Building permit fees, you do.
Sometimes it's good to have a little oversight and a little restrictive in our spending.
We don't need all
I
our
live my
money.
life that way.
It's all right, 2022 will solve all the problems.
Them impact fees, we're limited on what we can do, and I'm telling you, that ain't enough money to do what we need to do. We got to have some reserve money from these, building permits and stuff to do other stuff with, if we can't.
Yeah, the rest of the county
Part
needs
of
it.
the budget, so.
as a builder, I'm gonna stay out of any kind of building permit fees. I'm not gonna participate in that discussion.
Like I said,
Well, again, y'all, I mean, just the, we would just look at it as a group and realize how much we're putting on retail establishments. And I'm not saying we gotta reduce every building permit fee, but I think we want more retail because we want those taxes. And we heard from the school board last meeting we had, they need more taxes. We've got to promote that retail development, and we're not.
I would say that we're not hurting for retail development, at least in the Panhandle. And that's where we're talking about putting impact fees. Now, you gotta realize that most of the buildings going up there are shopping centers, and it's not an individual mom and pop location.
We just had, Jamie Gilbert brought Billadoo in here, and he was a big developer for retail, saying y'all are gonna kill us off more than ever.
Well, that's their story.
Believe me, it's not gonna kill them, not up there.
All right,
Might kill it here.
let's keep this discussion to the fire trucks.
Please, if anybody has any
All
questions or
right.
comments, please email us so we can have this information for you at first reading. Kim has been diligently making notes, and we'll get together and work on this. But again, just personal perspective, I like council to have the most flexibility you can. Ultimately, whether you do it or not, first side to 4 wins. That's y'all's decision.
All right, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adjourn these proceedings.
Have a motion for Mr. Honeycutt. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Have a second for
Let's
Mr.
go buy some
Blackman.
gasoline.
All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous
It's all been
approval
sold
to
since
adjourn.
you've been here.
There's no more left. Hey, but Larry and I got some.
Every gas station in India.
Myrtle Beach.